Hi all, it's the May 4th, 2022 policy meeting. Insert your Star Wars joke here. And we have four policies that we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to start with policy 2111, which is a discussion of board member authority. We currently, as a district, have that policy in our books. And we just want to look it over, make sure it might be due for an update, as it was last touched in 2003 when the policies were updated. So there were some changes. We looked at this briefly, and we kind of wanted to get everyone's voices on this. There were some changes sort of that NISBA's policy proposed, but I think RG, you and I think it was just, Rob, you weren't on that call. The three of us, RG and I were saying we liked the Voorheesville one. Aspects of it seemed to really work, but I wanted to give us a chance, all of us, to say whether or not we felt there were any worthwhile observations that we should make changes.
I agree with your summary, Rachel.
Thanks.
So just, is there anything in the old one that we want to bring in or update, you mean? I mean, it seems pretty, it seems like a pretty simple and clear one, I guess. So I don't know what, if anything, needs updating.
Nothing. I don't think it does necessarily need updating. I just wanted to bring it forward because it's been so long and it's also rather timely. We could remove the he, she, sorry. He, she's, and the they, that, and make them into into theirs in that last sentence, or the second to last sentence.
That would be the only change that I would.
And in the first paragraph as well.
I think our policy, the policy that you currently have, is pretty complex in comparison to the NISBA one, and is a little bit more clear and understandable.
I missed part of what you just said, Frank. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I said I think the board policy that we currently have is clear and understandable. The NISBA one seems to be kind of chunked a little bit more and leaves a little bit more interpretation in my mind. So I actually like there from 2003.
I like our straightforward policy as well. I'd say let's just update the language as I'm doing right now.
Pronouns.
Yes, thank you. That word. And I think that doesn't rise to the level of a board adoption of revisions. Frank, is that?
I'm looking at Jess saying, does it? So here's what here will be my suggestion. Yeah, just put it on. You've made a change.
Yep.
Be it slight, but I think it does twofold. One, it covers us because you're making language change, but two, it also is public acknowledgement of the fact that you are changing that.
And we've reviewed it.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
Updated it based on, the equity and inclusivity and understanding of where we are today in today's society. So I think it does twofold. So yeah, do both.
So when we're all, people will know that it has been touched in 2022 and looked over.
Yeah.
So
and we'll put it on for May agenda.
Yes. May accept revisions. I'm just going to write pronoun revisions just for the sake of us knowing that. Awesome. So we're all in agreement that this looks correct the way it is now?
Yeah, I like ours better.
Excellent. All right. Let's move on to the next fun policy. It'll be the 12-minute meeting. Let's do this numerical order and look at 2330, which is executive sessions. If that's okay with you guys, just to do it numerically.
Sure.
This one may become somewhat relevant. When we bring in the student, if the student member is accepted by the community and voted for by the community, they would not come to executive session. But this seems like it'd be a little bit more allowing of that.
Never.
Never?
Never.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. The ex officio student can never be a part of an executive session.
Unless they're invited. It's
Not even then. That's legal aspects.
okay.
You know, I'm pretty sure we might have put something about that in the policy, but under those circumstances, like, should we have students involved in staffing issues, personnel matters, legal issues, disciplinary issues, and that's really what executive is for. So,
Excellent.
Yeah. So.
All right.
I make that one clear because.
Yay, that's perfectly clear. Okay. So
You ready?
go for it, RG.
So my question on this one, in looking at the NISBA policy, is what happens to paragraph 10, which has to do with
discussions concerning
like placement of students with disabilities. It's just disappeared. Maybe we missed a revision at one point. I'm just not sure how it completely comes out, and NISBA doesn't comment on why it's not there.
For the list of reasons, you mean?
Yeah, the reason.
Yeah, we have 10 and they have 8.
Yeah. So they broke out 9.
They did. Aren't there 8, or is there a 9th?
So in the excuse me, in the NISBA policy, they broke it to say you can't take action in executive session except to vote on disciplinary charges against a tenured teacher.
Okay.
So they kind of broke it out, which I get, but I don't know what happened with 10.
Yeah.
So that might be a Ryan question, because that seems like either we should still have it or we should not have it. Like, there may be a legal reason not to have it, and we may have missed an update somewhere. You know,
how old is ours?
2003.
Oh, this was 2003 too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, all this stuff comes from the public officers law anyway, right?
So I can check.
Did that change?
I think it's in law, Rob, but yeah, it's in there.
Like number 10 is in there in the public officers law.
I thought it was in the education law, but you might be right. I haven't looked.
Yeah. How about I just ask the attorney?
Yeah.
Because that might have went through, like, maybe that might have went through Part 200 regulations for CSE, and that's why, because it has by committee. But I'll ask Ryan, because I do not know that answer.
And if I recall, there's a checklist of things which are part of the reasons to go off, and we would always check off what the reason is for going into executive session. I don't recall that 10th one being on that list.
No, I'll check with Ryan.
Okay.
You know, the why. That's a really good one.
If there's no reason, if we should no longer have that 10th paragraph because of other legal action that has occurred, does this policy look like it represents what we want as a policy?
I'm good with it otherwise.
I think so.
I think it reflects what executive session exists for. So yeah, I'm thinking we won't have an answer. We can hold this for June.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Onward and upward. You guys ready for the 4810, teaching about controversial issues?
Yeah.
To the extent one can be ready.
It's It's that kind of day.
It's a doozy.
Yeah. So timely, though. So this seems to be a subject that is coming out and about.
Yeah, so when I was reading these, I felt like the encourages or what was the other option? I didn't open it up. Hang on. The two options that we have, whether we encourage or whether we allow. Um, I didn't love either word. I kind of wanted to be somewhere in the middle, which led me to think maybe this before we dig in on this one needs to be a board discussion.
So encourage and support is
So like like not encourage, but not just allow, like something in between.
Yeah, that's kind of where I
Is welcomed,
land.
like in
or
between
recognize
there.
the need for kind of thing.
Yeah, I think like our current policy has some of that recognize language at the front.
Yeah.
Recognizes that it's a natural part of assuming an adult role, but
Mhm.
struggled with whether we were like actively encouraging teachers to raise those subjects versus understanding that they were going to come up. Right.
And then there's the idea that what's controversial to one person or family is not necessarily controversial in the slightest to another, and vice versa.
Correct. Right. That's another.
So kind of like the definition of the word appropriate when we're talking about dress code. What does appropriate mean? What is controversial in one person's eyes? So do you want this to be part of a board discussion? And would you want that to be in the May meeting? If you do, would you want it?
Can I make a suggestion?
Always.
So, Rachel, why don't you, like, after this, like, concisely put because I'm not going to be as articulate as either Archie or you on this one, the points that you just made, can we bullet point it, and then I'm going to speak to our attorney and then get attorney feedback as well of what they advise school districts? Because I think having this understanding, given like how controversial topics work now in the legal system and how they go by, having our attorney kind of weigh in too a little bit on what they would recommend as language. And then at that point afterwards, after we get our attorney's recommendation on top of the NISBA policy, on top of our conversation, then look at having a conversation and going from there. Is that all right? Or
we could do it that way.
Yeah. After we kind of figure out what our thoughts are, I don't know what he would recommend, because legally he might say to a district, no, permits is what you want. You don't want to encourage, or, and give us a reason why for either one, because, they're very good at telling me both ends of that.
My take is, given how much litigation there is ongoing, relating to controversial subjects being taught in schools, or what, in quotes, controversial. I think it makes sense, Frank, to get some advice. It is a policy. It's not,
Also, my understanding is that the NISBA policy provides us with some basic guidelines to interact with the policy. That is the language that they are recommending. So I think once we frame it, then if we have differences of where we want it to go, then that's where I think our attorney might step in and say, this language is acceptable. This language is something that you might not want to use because of whatever reason.
Yeah, I hear you, Rachel, but I think I would prefer to have the risk, like the legal risk of adopting a policy that takes one approach or the other, or, some third option that we come up with, vetted before we discuss it. That's my take, but
They give two options for a reason, you know,
Gotcha.
and there's got to be specifics behind that, you know, because I know they vetted this as well.
Yeah.
And the service is Erie 1, and I don't know what Erie 1s look like, but I would like, you know, I think what I'm looking for is exactly what Archie said, is just kind of just level it out for us and tell us what the risk is of either one of those. So then we have a better, more informed understanding of risk, right? Because that's where I live. My world is
Yeah.
district, right?
That makes sense.
Ability.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's either way, we're going to have to go back to Ron. I guess.
I think we lost Rachel. Oh, there you are.
She is frozen. Yeah.
There you are. Over.
So what we can do is, yes, ask the attorney for some framework, and what does this policy version mean versus that policy as far as the risk. So kind of a quantification of risk, and then as a board discuss where we sit on these things, and then once we have it framed, we can move forward from there.
So
That's your suggestion.
yeah, and it's really, we're just asking about the language, encourage or permits or somewhere in the middle, right? That's kind of where I'm focused on. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the way I read our procedure now is it basically follows the allow option.
Mhm.
You know, it's the procedure essentially for how staff would a lesson on a potentially controversial topic. So I think if we're going to be encouraged, understand them.
Every other word was out for me on that.
Me too. I thought it was me, but
Yep.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
kind of.
It's not important. You can say it. It was basically more my reflections on our current policy. It reads more as a procedure than a policy, which is okay. But I was also saying it follows the allows model.
Yeah. And things like balance major views and provide as many sides of the issue as possible. That to me becomes very interesting, because climate change, for example, has folks who don't agree that it's happening and then folks who do. But the folks who do are a very clear majority, 99% of scientists. So providing equal representation of both sides suggests that each side has equal probability of being a reality. While so all of you seem frozen to me, so I'm guessing I'm frozen to you.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, just you, RG, and Frank's very still, but I can tell Rob's smiling, so that's good. So things like that are interesting when we get into, as RG pointed out, the kind of the recipe for how the procedural. All right, so that conversation was rather brief. We have one more item, which is policy 6680. Are we? I'm sorry, I kind of jumped ahead, assuming that we're all agreement. Are we? Were we all in agreement that this will go to the attorney to give us an idea of risk, and then we'll come back, discuss, and send to the full board for discussion?
And I'll prep language and comments to embed into the current policy, into the new policy, the NISBA policy, like in red, so you can see where it is. So when it comes back, you'll have the kind of points.
Yeah. Maybe he could put like a sliding scale of, probability of lawsuit or something.
I'm sure we're not the only district that's looked at this policy in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that he has some insight that maybe we're not privy to or understanding. So I think it's wise to ask.
Excellent. Good use of that body of information. So, all right. So, are we all good to go to 6810?
Yep.
6680. Sorry. Here we go. So this is fun when we have a 6680. But my understanding is our 6680 is different than the NISBA 6680. So
We don't.
ours is on capital assets and theirs is internal audit function.
Do we have an internal audit policy?
I don't
I
think
don't
we
think so. Jinx.
do.
This is a local and notice, so therefore you don't need it if you don't want it. So it's a local policy, and with those local policies and recommendations is you can choose to have these. It really is up to the board on this. But if we don't have one already, that is, that's a question that you want to ask as well.
That is a huge amount of work that they're suggesting. But we do an audit, but it's an external audit.
We do internal audits too. We have an internal auditor.
Well, we have a claims auditor, right? But we don't have the position of internal auditor.
That's true.
So, I looked at this too. I don't think we have over 1,500 students, right? So we're not legally required to have the position of internal auditor. I remember talking about this when I joined the board because I was interested in, since I was going to take over audit committee, I was interested in the internal audit function and that section of the law. But we're not legally required to have it, and I know we perform internal audits through the claims auditor, but we don't have the position of internal auditor. So, I mean, we could look at putting in place a policy for when we get there, because we might get there in terms
1,500.
yeah, we might get to 1,500 students at some point and have a need to have a policy and create the position. But right now we don't.
I'd be curious. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, I'd be curious as to Jim Sethard's opinion on this.
Well, that was my second point was, on this capital assets policy,
Mhm.
I don't even know if this is where I would want Jim's opinion. Do we even need a policy to reflect this? Because it's all, I'm sure, contained in the accounting standard regulations that we have to follow. So, I was looking at this saying, do we even need a policy on this? Because we're bound to follow it anyway, just because we get audited externally to make sure we're complying. So that was kind of where I stood on these.
So I'm smiling because I texted Jim and asked him his opinion, and so the answer was this is not needed.
So we can get rid of our 6680.
Right, because we're bound
Wait,
to inventory these assets, to track their.
This policy here, he says we don't need.
wait, I need to see which one. Which one are you? The new one?
Policy, since we don't have it, he says it's not needed.
So the NISBA 66 do not need, because we're not required.
He doesn't believe we need it.
But then what about the capital assets, the current 6680 that's on our books?
I'm asking him right now. Is that in our Google Doc or no? Our current 6680?
Yes, it is. No, yes, it is. Sorry.
Required one?
I have never heard of retiring a policy. So if we
No, you can. You can abolish a policy or not, if it's within another policy.
Yeah, so we'd have to figure out where we talk about our internal auditor and the standard, but we probably have it.
Yeah, so, and that's a local notice policy that the 6680 capital assets, though, I think that might be one you need.
Does NISBA have asset policy that we could just renumber this?
Yeah, is there a different number so that we align going
Jess will-
forward? Okay. So maybe we renumber this one that we already have, and if NISBA has a different version of it, we update it appropriately. This one's a new one. It's only 15 years old. All right.
I'm asking Jim, and he'll get back to us either
Okay.
today or.
And Jess, is Jess to your right or something?
Yep.
Frank? Hi, Jess. Can you find out if this exists in NISBA under a different number? And if so, what does that look like? And we can, if it's something we need, then we should definitely have it. But maybe we should renumber it so that we align and we don't have different numbering systems.
She's gonna get that.
Okay. All right. So that was it. Those are our 4 policies. Is there anything else on anyone's mind?
I'm gonna stall for a second.
Okay.
So I have an answer.
How about that rain?
Yeah, so I was gonna stall and talk about the code of conduct quick, but Jim said he goes, I think it can be streamlined, the capital asset policy, or
Okay.
we approve the capitalization levels at the reorg meeting. So instead of putting the capitalization levels in a policy, you can then approve them each year at a reorg. Either one of
Yeah.
those.
Mm-hmm.
So we can ask about that, or then we can have a conversation about maybe changing up that structure if we so wish to too. Either one would be acceptable. But he does believe that you have to have some capitalization levels so we know where they are.
I think we
Glad I
had some
stalled.
discussion of something. Yeah, we had some discussion about the purchase orders and such, and like the numbers were so low that it was just triggering a ridiculous amount of paperwork that was not necessary. Like the paperwork cost more than the
Yeah,
anything
we
else.
changed that.
Um,
We did change that before.
Yeah.
This is just ask, since we have a capital asset program now, and we brought that in because we didn't have a strong one before. Now we have one. Having the guidelines is good.
Excuse me.
Finding this policy probably is the best bet.
Okay. Awesome.
Right.
So
So next, I told Rachel, and since I brought it up already, myself and the attorney has been going through the code of conduct, and we've went through it, and we've looked at things like equity aspects of it and our new DEI policies. And so there's some changes that we've made to that, basically to make it more inclusive. So you'll see those changes. I'm just working with right now, just finalizing with our building leadership teams and our principals, making sure there's no other recommendations that they have for us. But mine are more language content level of the code of conduct, more so than processes. But I'll bring those to the next meeting.
okay. Yeah, that's something we review annually, and we have the public has the opportunity to discuss and so on. So that's nice to get ahead of it. Awesome. And we have quite a bit to discuss at next week's meeting for the board. There's the different topics for discussion. The public complaints will be updated with revisions. First read of 1405, revisions on 1420. The complaints about the curriculum, that's something that's revised, and we'll be accepting or voting on the revisions. And then the 2160, the Code of Ethics, separate from the Code of Conduct. We will discuss that at the board meeting next week. And we'll have a first read of 5152, foreign student policy. So, and accepting the revisions to 2111. So there we go.
It made us sound very,
now.
very busy. All the things you just said, just like Isaac. So she'll confirm tomorrow with you, Rachel, that we have everything for the agenda.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be great. And we have
Correct?
what?
7.
Counted 7.
1, 2, wait, 1, 2. Possibly.
Okay. She'll email you.
Yeah, I'll check in with you. But we're waiting for attorney feedback on 4810, the controversial teaching, and the comparison with the 6680 numbering at least, and if there's some sort of way we can streamline what we have. But we will not be adopting the 6680 that NISBA has at the internal audit right now. So we just want to try and keep our number. I personally think it's easier if our numbering systems are the same, or at least as close to the same. All right. Is there anything that you guys want to bring up so we can prepare for the June meeting? Now, not to prepare for it now, but in advance. If there is anything, let me know. Let Frank know.
Rachel, is there any that we're supposed to review yearly at the reorg meeting that we should do in June just to make sure that we're ready for it?
I will check.
Yeah, I can't remember. I would have to check on this board or look it up, but that's my only thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a couple that you have to do, and maybe they're fine, but we say
Yep.
we
You check on them. Yeah, the code of conduct is that one that we do annually, and there are some that we're trying to get through that you're supposed to do every 2 years, and that maybe haven't been. So I will check for the annual, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there is, but better be safe.
I would hope there isn't.
Hey, Rachel, I'm having trouble remembering where we ended up with NISBA policy 1405, the one complaints about certain federally funded programs.
We're pushing that one forward for first read next week.
Okay, perfect.
It's a real simple one, and it's an area we haven't covered, but we might as well. There's no fault in covering it.
Yeah, I figured, because I think when we discussed it, we had talked about adding it to a list of things that sort of get disclosed to parents at the beginning of the year. So I make sure we've got it ready by then.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. I don't know if we were adding that list in, though.
No, I don't think we were, but I just
Yeah.
the timing in terms of getting this one ready to roll out the year.
Okay. Yeah. So this, usually when we have a meeting, we haven't had our policy meeting. So this time we'll have 2 policy meetings to bring forward to the board. So awesome.
Great.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
Cool.
All right.
Bye.
See y'all later. Good to see you guys today, even on screen. All right. Take care.